All right, welcome back. Today, another interesting topic about welfare. How does welfare interact with the general model? If you think about what welfare results from, essentially someone does nothing, and then as a result of them doing nothing, the government or other people will pay them money or give them resources, give them a place to stay, those type of things. It is, if you look at it as a business model, it is functional, right? In most Western societies, there's enough money to survive. Definitely not pleasantly, definitely not an opulent living, but there is enough money to survive. The issue with this is that unlike other business models, like if I become educated and then I can earn more money, there's not a way for the individual on welfare to actually do more of the thing to get more money, right? So if I did nothing to get money, I can't do twice as much nothing and get paid twice as much or 3 times as much. There's no way for me to scale essentially this business model. And then as you end up with children being brought into this environment, that business model is then being reinforced of do nothing and you'll get paid for it. So then there's an expectation for, well, that's a business model, that's how I lived. So I'm going to keep doing nothing. The other problem inherent within the system is that if I decide there's some amount of value that I'm getting, if I'm getting that value and then I say, oh, I'm going to go get a job, quite often the job will not provide as much money as the welfare was. And there's these weird points where me getting a job actually, if I was getting $20,000 worth of welfare and then I got a $20,000 job, I just lost time, right? It wouldn't even make sense if someone like, you can do nothing and make $20,000 or you can do something and make $20,000. It's probably better for their mental health. It's probably better for their business model because they could actually scale that. But in the short term, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So as you look at these things, like you got to be careful. And I know that there's a lot of systems, there's a lot of intricacies there, but you need to be really careful on reinforcing business models that you don't really want, or making sure there's ways off of these welfare programs that make sense, where how do I actually make more? How do I get off there? What's the incentive to get off? I don't think most people want to be on it, but there's a side where you're like, well, financially it actually makes sense. The other place that I've seen in some of the research that I've done is when people get married, it often, or when people have children, if you're on the lower end, for instance, if the man doesn't make enough money or it's not consistent money, then there's actually times when it makes sense for the man not to be in the house. Because if they're like, oh, you have a man and he's making $20,000, that means we're going to reduce, or your husband makes $20,000, we're going to reduce the amount of money that we give you as welfare. So there's actually cases where it makes sense for financial purposes to actually not be married, to not stay together, because it'll actually reduce the amount of resources that you'd have available. So there's some weird dynamics that go into that, where you really want to be really clear about how the system works and where those little, I would say, inflection points, places where you need to transition people off of welfare. You're trying to help them because, frankly, the whole society would rather have someone who's making $50,000 a year versus someone who's just chewing through $20,000 a year in resources, right? So we all want to get them to that place where they're beneficial. However, certain points in the system actually create disincentives for them to do that. So as you look at this, welfare can be a hard thing because it's actually disincentivizing them getting a good business model that would actually function.